I'm sitting in my den on a Tuesday afternoon, 77 years old now, looking at a photograph from 1982. I'm 32 in the picture, standing in front of my new Toyota Camry. Yeah, beige, 4 doors, the safest car Consumer Reports recommended that year. I remember being so proud of that purchase. I'd done my research, read every review, made sure I was getting the most reliable vehicle for my money. That photograph sits on my desk because it reminds me of something I only understood 10 years ago at 67. That car, that careful, sensible, well-researched choice, it represents every decision I made for 40 years. And looking back now, I can see how each of those safe choices, each of those careful calculations, how they added up to something I never intended, a life that stayed the same size while the world around me grew. My name is Richard. I worked as an accountant for 38 years. Same company, same department, same desk by the window on the fourth floor. That year, I retired with a decent pension, a paid-off mortgage, and the knowledge that I'd done everything right, everything safe, everything by the book. But here's what took me 67 years to understand. Playing it safe isn't the same as living well. And by the time I figured that out, I'd already spent most of my life choosing security over growth, comfort over possibility, and the known over the unknown. I grew up in Cleveland in the 1950s. My father worked at the steel mill for 28 years. Same job until the plant closed in 1979. My mother kept the house, raised 4 children, and made every dollar stretch. They were good people, hard-working people. Well, and the lesson they taught us over and over was simple. Get a steady job. Save your money. Don't take chances. My father's favorite phrase was, "That's all well and good, but what's the backup plan?" Everything needed a backup plan. Everything needed insurance. Nothing was certain enough to risk what we already had. When I was 15, I wanted to start a lawn mowing business with my friend Dan. We'd seen an advertisement for a used riding mower, $250, and we thought we could split the cost and make our money back by summer's end. My father sat me down at the kitchen table and explained all the ways it could go wrong. The mower could break down, people might not pay us, we'd lose our investment. Better to get a paper route, he said, guaranteed income. I got the paper route. Danny got the mower. By the end of that summer, he'd made over $800. I'd made maybe $200, and I'd gotten up at 5 in the morning every single day. But I'd played it safe. That pattern, it set early, and once it sets, it's hard to break. I was a decent student in high school. Not brilliant, not struggling, right in the middle, which felt comfortable. When it came time to think about college, I had a choice to make. I'd always been interested in architecture. I used to draw buildings, sketch floor plans, imagine structures that didn't exist yet. My art teacher, Mrs. Belia Donovan, she encouraged me. She said I had an eye for design, that I should pursue it. But architecture school was competitive and expensive. And what if I didn't make it? What if I spent 4 years and all that money and ended up without a job? My father asked about the backup plan. My mother worried about the debt to make. So I chose accounting instead. Business was solid. Companies always needed accountants. The degree was practical, the job market was steady, and I'd be guaranteed employment. I remember the day I changed my application from the architecture program to business. I was sitting in the guidance counselor's office, and she asked me if I was sure. I said yes. I said it made more sense. She nodded and processed the paperwork, and that was that. One decision. One safe, sensible, practical decision that shaped the next 40 years. Accountants. I finished my accounting degree in 1977, 4 years of balance sheets and tax codes and financial statements. I was good at it, not passionate, but competent. And competent was enough because competent got you hired. I interviewed with 6 firms that spring, got offers from 3, chose the one with the best benefits package and the strongest reputation for stability, Johnson & Marks. They've been around since 1923. That seems safe.
The years at Johnson & Marks, they blurred together in a way that's hard to describe.
Not unhappy years, but not memorable ones either. I came in at 8, left at 5:30. I did my work, did it well, got my annual raises, 3%, sometimes 4 if it was a good year. I bought the beige Camry in 1982, sold it in 1991, and bought another Camry. Blew that time, but still the safest choice. The firm offered me a promotion in 1993, senior accountant to accounting manager. It came with a significant raise, $15,000 more per year. But it also came with more responsibility, longer hours, and stress I wasn't sure I wanted.
Not I'd be managing a team of 6 people, dealing with difficult clients, handling complaints.
My wife Linda thought I should take it. Her father thought I should take it. It was advancement. It was opportunity. But I kept thinking about the extra hours, the added pressure. I liked my routine. I liked leaving at 5:30. I liked not having to worry about other people's mistakes or whether clients were happy, so I turned it down. I told them I was happy where I was. They seemed surprised but accepted my decision. They gave the promotion to a woman named Sandra who'd been with the firm 3 years less than me. She did well in the role, worked hard, moved up again 5 years later, became a partner eventually.
I stayed at my desk by the window. Same responsibilities.
Same hours, same comfortable routine. I think about that decision more than any other single choice I made in my career. Not because I wanted to be a partner. I don't think I did.
But because turning down that promotion, it confirmed something to myself.
It confirmed that I'd rather stay small and comfortable than grow and be uncomfortable. And once you confirm that to yourself once, it becomes easier to confirm it again and again.
There were investment opportunities over the years.
Linda's brother-in-law wanted to start a restaurant in 1995. He was looking for investors, people willing to put in $25,000 for a stake in the business. He'd worked in restaurants his whole life, had a solid plan, a good location. Linda wanted to do it. We had the money saved.
But I couldn't do it. I kept thinking about all the restaurants that failed.
What if we lost the whole $25,000? That was 2 years of careful saving. I convinced Linda it was too risky. We kept our money in savings accounts and certificates of deposit, safe, guaranteed returns, 2%, 3%, never more. The restaurant opened without us. It struggled for the first year, like most restaurants do, but it survived. Then it thrived. Linda's brother-in-law opened a second location in 2001, a third in 2005. He sold the business in 2012 for a sum that made us both sit quietly for a long time afterward. The people who'd invested that initial $25,000, they got back over $300,000 each.
And we still had our money in savings, safe, growing slowly, reliably.
We'd accumulated maybe $200,000 by that point through decades of careful saving. It was good, it was solid, but it wasn't $300,000 from a single investment. My brother Paul, he took a different path. He's 3 years younger than me. Paul never played it safe.
I dropped out of college after 2 years to backpack through Europe.
Worked odd jobs, taught English in Spain, lived in a van for 6 months. Our parents were horrified. I thought he was irresponsible. He came back, studied photography. Photography. Our father nearly lost his mind. You can't make a living as a photographer, he said. Paul finished his degree anyway and started working as a freelance photographer, weddings mostly, and some commercial work. For years, it looked like our father was right. Paul struggled. Some months he'd barely make rent. He drove an old truck that broke down constantly. He didn't have health insurance. Linda and I would talk about him with concern. But Paul kept at it. He got better. His reputation grew. By his mid-40s, he was shooting for national magazines. Travel photography, which meant he got paid to visit places I'd only seen in documentaries. Iceland, New Zealand, Tanzania. He published 2 books of his work.
And then when I was 55 and Paul was 52, we met for dinner when he was passing through town. I asked him if he ever regretted not having a stable career, not having the security I had.
He thought about it for a while. Then he said, I've never had much money. I don't own a house. I'm not going to retire with your kind of pension. But Rich, I spent my whole life looking at beautiful things and trying to capture them. I've been terrified more times than I can count, but I've never been bored. Not once.
Had. I went home that night and couldn't shake what he'd said. I'd been bored. God, I'd been so bored for so long.
But boredom felt safe. It felt manageable. You can get used to boredom in a way you can't get used to fear. The real turning point for me came when I was 62. I'd been thinking about retirement. I had 3 more years until 65, and then I'd be done. And then I had a health scare. Chest pains that landed me in the emergency room on a Saturday morning. They ran tests, kept me overnight. Turned out it wasn't a heart attack, just severe anxiety manifesting as physical symptoms. But lying in that hospital bed, I kept thinking about how I'd spent the last 40 years. I tried to remember the last time I'd felt truly excited about something, the last time I'd learned something that genuinely challenged me, the last time I'd done anything that made me feel more capable than I'd been the day before. I couldn't think of a single instance in the past decade. I'd played it safe for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to grow. Everything in my life was calibrated to minimize risk, and in doing so, I'd minimized everything else too. Joy, discovery, change, progress. The realization didn't come all at once. It built slowly over the next few years. I started noticing things I'd been blind to before. How many conversations I had where I repeated the same stories. How similar each day was to the one before. I looked at my bookshelf and realized I'd been rereading the same 20 books for years because I knew I liked them. I looked at my routines, my habits, my choices, and I saw 40 years of trying not to fail instead of trying to succeed.
So long. At 67, I retired. The party was small. They gave me a plaque and some golf equipment.
And then I walked out of that building for the last time. I spent the first year of retirement doing very little, watching television, projects around the house. It was fine. But fine wasn't enough anymore. Something had shifted in me, and I couldn't go back to accepting fine as good enough. I started trying things at 68 that I should have tried at 28. I took a watercolor painting class at the community center. I was terrible at it. My paintings looked like something a child would make. But standing in front of that easel, trying to create something that didn't exist before, I felt more alive than I'd felt in years. I volunteered at a literacy center helping adults learn to read. These were people who'd lived their whole lives with a limitation they were finally trying to overcome. They were scared. They were embarrassed. But they showed up anyway because they wanted to grow. I looked at these students, some of them older than me, and I realized they understood something I'd spent most of my life avoiding. Growth requires vulnerability. It requires admitting you don't know something and being willing to look foolish while you learn.
Equipment. I'd spent 40 years in a job where I was competent, where I knew what I was doing, where I never had to feel inadequate.
And in protecting myself from inadequacy, I protected myself from growth. I'm 77 now. The past 10 years since that realization at 67, they've been better than the 40 before them. Not easier, but better. I've learned more. I've tried more. I've failed more, which means I've attempted more. Here's what I understand now that I wish I'd understood at 27. Playing it safe doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you small. There's a difference between avoiding catastrophe and building a life worth living. I spent so long focused on avoiding catastrophe that I forgot to ask if I was building anything at all. Growth requires risk, not reckless risk, but the willingness to step into situations where you might fail, where you might look foolish, where you might discover that you're not as capable as you thought you were. And that's okay. That's how you get better.
I don't regret everything about my safe choices. I'm glad I have a pension. I'm glad we paid off our mortgage.
But I do regret the imbalance. I regret that I never calibrated my life for growth the way I calibrated it for security. I regret that it took me 67 years to understand that you can't grow without risk, and you can't truly live without growth. If you're listening to this and you're younger than I am, think about the balance in your own life. Security matters. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's not the only thing that matters. Growth matters too. The feeling of becoming more capable, more knowledgeable, more experienced, that matters enormously. Don't wait until you're 67 to figure this out. Take the promotion even if it scares you. Make the investment even if you might lose some money. Start the business, learn the skill, take the trip, not recklessly, not without thought, but also not with so much caution that you never do anything worth being afraid of. I'm 77 years old. I have maybe 10 years left if I'm lucky. And I'm spending those years trying to make up for the 40 I spent in that same desk by the same window doing the same work. It's not enough time. I know that, but it's what I have, and I'm not going to waste it being careful anymore. If any of this resonates with you, I'd appreciate it if you'd like this video or leave a comment about a risk you've been considering.
And if you'd like to hear more of these reflections, subscribe to the channel.